this is Skeet.
My name is Moshin Mikey over here.
Rock and Roll Roundtable.
Yeah, proudly presented by our good friends at Moshman Media.
This week, as you can see, we have the hair metal guru.
Hold your applause.
Yeah.
There we go, man. I've been
Awesome to
pumped
be
for
here.
this. I have been excited for this. I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yeah, hey, my pleasure. And we've been chatting about doing this for a while, and tonight we finally made it happen. So I'm pumped to be here and talk music and whatever shit you guys want to throw at me. So I'm ready to roll.
Mikey.
Cool. Yes, sir.
Anything you want to
Oh,
start with?
well, I've been checking out your YouTube stuff and watching your panels that you have, and very good ones. And the last one I liked a lot was making your own dream team band yeah.
Yeah.
But I know your hair metal kind of heavy influence. What's your second? What would be your second genre that you really kind of consider your next best thing? I would say.
Um, that's a great question. You know, when hair metal ended, I was still like in the 92, 93, 94 when grunge started taking over. I was still buying all the hair metal stuff. But I really got onto people are probably going to hate me for this, but I got into pop punk really big.
Okay.
And I was the Offspring. Later on I got into Blink 182. I kind of liked Nirvana, or not Nirvana. I kind of liked Green Day, but I got into a lot of obscure because I've always liked punk. But I thought
Yeah.
that pop punk sound, you know, it was poppy, it was fast, it was catchy, and so that fit right into what I liked. And shoot, even now when I listen to music, I mean, you know, I've never been one who can just listen to the old stuff. You know, like
Right.
I have great friends who are still like, yep, I listen to Motley Crue and Poison and all that, and I love that stuff. But I could never just stay there. So I've always been looking for new bands, and I've gotten into, you know, a lot of obscure stuff. There's bands from Minneapolis that I like. But I listen to a lot of acoustic stuff, and I
Hmm.
listen to a lot of punk rock is where I'm at right now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I just like when you were in the hair metal, kind of like me when I was listening to hair metal back in the '80s. I was listening to everything.
Oh yeah,
So I think like classic metal was always there. And then of course I got into the hard stuff later in life. So I'm like a metalcore, deathcore kind of guy, but I still can listen to Rat and Poison and all the good stuff from the 80s. So I think it's important as a lover of music that you can do that. And pop punk, I have plenty of pop punk that I really, really like. It's
yeah,
just some of it went a little too mainstream
yeah,
for me,
sure,
but
sure.
I'm like you. I like the obscure stuff that not everybody hears. I love a band called Belmont.
Okay.
If you haven't heard those, check those guys out. They're pop punk. You got a little bit of an edge to them, but they're just very catchy, very melodic at times, but they can punch you in the mouth at the same time. So
I never
it's
got
kind of
into
cool.
I never got into stuff that was dramatically heavy. Like
Okay.
I liked 80s Metallica. I liked Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, stuff like that. Some of the more melodic Pantera stuff, but that was I never got into grunge. I never
Huh.
was one who was good. I liked some Alice in Chains, sure, but I was never, I wasn't rushing out to buy the new Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Nirvana. When my friends would play that stuff, I got into college in the fall of 1991, right when that stuff was exploding. So all my friends were listening to it, and
Right.
I could be like, okay, yep, I STP and Alice in Chains were two bands that I liked. But I was still shit in those years. I was like, hey, Warrant put out a new album in 95. I was buying that stuff. But when I wasn't doing that, pop punk, got into a lot of stuff like here. I'll even give you in the early '90s. I just did a video not too long ago, like 5 albums that I got into in the early '90s. Soul Asylum.
Okay.
They kind of, they had some punk influences. Uh, the Gin Blossoms. I liked some of that poppier stuff. So it to me that yeah, I like the poppier side of metal with hair metal. I like the poppier side of rock as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess I went off the deep end.
Hell yeah, that's all
I went
right.
into the heavy, heavy, heavy stuff,
That's all
but
right. A lot of
I
people did
still
that.
listened at all.
A lot
It's
of
hard
people
to
just
keep
went
up.
heavier and heavier and heavier. But
Well, I mean, it's hard to keep up because there's so much music coming at all times that you get. I'm kind of ADD about it. I get one thing and then I go to the next and I go to the next. But you, being the hair metal guru, I'm sure there's plenty of hair bands that I missed
oh,
because I was doing all that dancing around.
what one
Like
of
one
what?
shirt I did see you wearing that I was going to ask you about was Lily and Axe.
Yeah.
I've never heard them.
Oh, geez.
Never in my life have I heard
I,
them.
I tell
So
you what, their first 4 albums, Lillian Axe, the self-titled from '88, Love and War from '89, Poetic Justice from 1992, and Psycho Schizophrenia from '93, and they're still putting out albums. But man, I mean, they were just the victim of record company. I collect tons. Like if you look at my house, I have music memorabilia all over the place.
yes.
I call it the House of Hair, but they never got any promotion from their record company. They would get one video. You never saw their ads in magazines. You didn't see many stories about them. But that is a band that I've tried to promote on the channel uh, since the beginning. And speaking, you were saying, I'm sure there's a lot of hair metal bands that you never heard about. Since I started this thing, which has been about a year and a half since I started the channel. Like one of the best parts about that is that I'm now on X and through the people that I talk to on the channel, I'm constantly hearing about shit. I call myself the hair metal guru, but there was a lot of bands that never got to me back in the day. So I'm still discovering stuff, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, I
So,
look forward to checking it out. So
Yeah,
have you
no,
had
absolutely.
have you had people like send you stuff? Have you specifically said, "Hey, send me something from your area," or are you kind of wanting to stick to the more mainstream? I mean,
I love it all, and I'll say sometimes I just had to let my dog in. Charlie is actually kind of popular on my YouTube channel, so um,
yeah,
but like I'll whenever we do a video on like, hey, here's 10 obscure bands from the '80s that we think you should know about, and then I'll always say, hey, what are some bands you think maybe that we haven't heard about? So when people send that stuff, and I'm always in the comment, I'm like legitimately, please send it to me because I would love to hear. So I just did a video about hair metal albums that I haven't really gotten into in the last, until the last couple of years. Bands like Blue Tears, and now I won't be able to sit and think of a bunch, but like I've stuff that I've gotten either from contributors to the channel or from people just recommending. So yeah, I mean, I'm still finding new bands all the time.
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, we found a few. We were doing like a Virgin Ears episode where we took bands neither one of us ever heard, and we found that band London,
Oh yeah,
and we knew it from Nikki Six and them guys, but the band London's not very good, But it's like they spawned some very very good people that went on to do better things. So
everybody was in that band. I mean, I think got people from Cinderella was in London.
Wasp,
Nikki Six was in London. Blackie
yes,
from Wasp was in
yeah,
London. So I just did an episode. I don't know if you know of Razor Fist. He's
yep.
pretty he's got like close to 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've been a fan of his for well shit. All of a sudden when I'm like, holy shit, Razor Fist follows me. And so one day he responded to something I posted, and I'm like, man, I'd love to do a video with you, thinking he's not going to respond. The dude has
Yeah.
hundreds of that. And all of a sudden
Yeah.
there he was. He's like, let's do it. So we did a video about, underrated hair metal bands, and he actually, one of his was London, and just talking about bands that didn't make it. And if you guys have seen the decline of Western civilization part 2, the metal
Oh,
years,
oh
it was
yeah. Oh yeah.
featured prominently in that movie, and it wasn't really a really good portrayal. I mean, you didn't watch they kind of seemed like a bunch of drunks, and they seemed like they would have been fun to party with. But anyway, yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah. I get that.
but I remember London.
100%.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Well, Razor Fist had that series, so I remember watching that series when he had it out, and I'm going, "This is good."
Oh yeah,
I mean, this is good coverage of all these bands. And
Metal
then
Mythos.
down the line, it was like, that's the same guy. Oh, that's fucking
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So
And-
yeah, I was impressed. I was like, damn.
I mean,
Very good.
those videos must take him. The last one he put out was Alice Cooper. It was about a year ago, and it's a 2-hour video. He goes through every album and gives a brief review and has song clips and interview clips. I'm like, it takes me forever to edit a video, and I don't add all that extra. So, I mean, it must take him a long time. But I mean, the guy's built a following. He talks politics. He talks music, video gaming. He writes. So it was an honor to have him on the channel, and hopefully I'll get him on again. But yeah, he's kind of an inspiration for people who are becoming creators like we are. So
Yeah.
Well,
Very cool.
exactly. I mean, you got one of the guys from Lillian Axe too, correct? I think I remember watching that one. How was that? How did that feel?
It was awesome because he's been it was Steve Blaze, who's their lead guitar player and writes all the music, and so I have done a couple Lillian Axe videos. I did a ranking of the albums, and I did a ranking of our favorite Lillian Axe songs. And Steve, commented on one of these videos, and he's like, "Hey," he goes, "I'd love to come on and tell you the history of the band." And I'm like, "Shit, is this really him? Because I don't know anybody can name their YouTube channel Steve Blaze." So I'm like, if this is you, I'm like, absolutely. So he reached out, and we did a 2-hour interview, and he laid out the whole history, and the Mike or Milyanko, what he goes by now, from Steelheart. I just reached out to his publicist because the publicist had kind of shared, like, hey, he had a movie coming out, and he was doing interviews. So I was like, hey, I'd love to do one. So I got 20 minutes with him, and it ended up being a 30-minute interview, which was great. And so I'm hoping to do more of that, and mainly just because I want to talk to people that had an impact on me with their music. So I've been talking to, shit, now I'm going to be embarrassed that I can't remember his name. Tommy Paris from Britney Fox, who sang on their third album. Talked a little bit. Friends with Stevie Rochelle from Tough on Facebook. He's said that he's willing to do it. Just we got to find the right time. So as the channel grows, I'm hoping that I get more opportunities like that. So
Yeah, that'd be awesome to talk to your people that you really looked up
your
to.
heroes, your heroes. I mean, when I was 16
Yeah.
and 17, if you would have told me I was going to be talking to Steve Blaze from Lillian Axe, I would have been like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty insane. So
Yeah, those moments though, you'll never forget those. It's I remember being on the stage with Stryper, who's like one of my all-time favorites.
Yep.
And I still can't get over that I was on the stage taking a selfie with them, with the crowd behind us.
Right.
And yeah, sweating all. They're up there sweating around, and I'm right there in the middle of them. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget that. And it was an honor to meet them, but it was even more cool to be on the stage and look from their perspective
Yeah.
out to the crowd and get a picture and all that good stuff.
I've done numerous videos on Warrant. I've said that, like I got pulled up on stage a couple times back in the 90s. Got to hang out on their tour bus. Warrant was one of my favorite bands. There's
Yeah.
actually YouTube footage of me in like 1995 on stage with Warrant, and I shared it in one of my videos. But so yeah, I mean that's stuff that, you know, to some people it would be, you know, that's like meeting, you know, LeBron James. Like when I was 18 years old, like I looked at Janie Lane and guys like that, like, oh, they're mythical figures. You know, I can never dream of meeting them or whatever. And so yeah, you're right. You know, I'm 52 years old, and I'm still like, holy shit! Like I've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff, either back in the day or through this channel, and hopefully, you know, hopefully that continues. So. And this is
Yeah.
Charlie,
Yeah.
and she's
Hi,
very, very
Charlie.
pretty, very
Charlie,
popular on YouTube, isn't that right? So,
good
yeah.
puppy.
Yeah.
So, what made you decide that you wanted to do a channel? What was the kind of aha moment where it's like, that's what I'm going to do that?
Yeah.
What was that? What was it for
Well,
you?
you know, when I was in college, I was always writing lyrics. My roommate played guitar. I always wanted to be in a band. Unfortunately, my voice was like fairly average to shit. So I was like, and I couldn't play an instrument, so I was never going to be in a band. I was an English major. In fact, you know, I taught high school English for 12 years. So I thought, well, maybe I should try to write about music just to be involved in it at some point. And I did a few things. When Janie Lane died, I wrote a big, huge article on Janie Lane, and it was on Sleaze Rocks, and you know, and it got shared around. But I just, yeah, this probably sounds bad, but I didn't have the patience to sit and write, you know, all the time and not know if people were going to get it. So a couple years ago, you know, I started, and I give a lot of credit. One of my good buddies in this Metal Mike from the 80s glam metal cast. We've been friends on X or Twitter for a long time. And I'd watch his stuff, and he was getting interviews with Don Dokken and all these rock stars. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, that doesn't look that hard. I mean, what, like I could, you know, and I think I'm pretty well spoken. I'm like, shit, you know, I can sit and talk about music. And you know, so a year and a half ago, it was in like June of shit. What would that have been? 23, June of 2023. It was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I don't have no clue what I'm fucking doing, but I'm gonna hit record. And the first video I did was I ranked the Warrant albums, and now I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing. Like you know, like your first one, I'm like rating every song and all the shit that you eventually learn. But uh, yeah, it was watching these other people and just thinking, you know, I am such a music fanatic. Like I want to be involved in it. And even if it's just a YouTube channel, I figured, you know what? I'll start this channel. Maybe I'll get a few hundred people that are hair metal fanatics and who will watch my stuff. I'm like, that'll be good. And you know, a year and a half later, I'm right at 3,800 subscribers, which for me was I never dreamed about. So, you know, there's a lot bigger channels, but I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing for what I thought I'd get. And it, you know, it seems to be, like I said, you know, guys like Razor Fist or and people from Lillian Axe. So that was the impetus, is watching buddies of mine do it and thinking, I want to do something in music. I can do this.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Hey, now, as far as your panelists that you have on with you, are they just people you met through the channel or a different avenue you met them or?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So Metal Mike was probably the first guest that I had on. And then on X, you know, there's this group of people that talk about all this shit. You know, every day I get tagged by, you know, there'll be like 12 of us that are tagged on some post about hair metal. And, you know, one of them was Brian from the Hairband Basement. He was always responding to shit. He does a Friday night music channel on or like music show on Station Head. He kept responding, you know, and you know, we started chatting a little bit, and I'm like, shit. He was like, oh, big fan of the show. I'm like, well, you should come on sometime. Because at first I was doing everything on my own. Now I very rarely have videos where I'm on my own. I usually have people. So Brian from the Hairband Basement, he comes on every Wednesday now. It started off just occasionally. Now every Wednesday. Ryan, and I've never met him. I know him from X. He lives in Connecticut. Ryan is from California, and he does a lot of videos with Metal Mike from the 80s Glam Metalcast. We started chatting through that. One day I asked him if he wanted to come on. Now he does one every Thursday. And then I've had people reach out to me. That Jeremy is a good friend of mine. He is a teacher in North Dakota. He had been watching for a while. He emailed me. He's like, dude, he goes, I live in North Dakota. He goes, I know you're in North Dakota. I've been watching your stuff. He goes, I feel like you're my long lost brother. The way you talk about this music, because I mean, I don't know about you. Like I don't have anybody in Fargo that is as psyched about hair metal as I am. So I got to talk to these people online. So he reached out. He's on the channel. Jay Brannon has been on now. He actually drove to my house from Iowa. I was having I sell all this stuff, and I'll have sales at my house, garage sales over the summer. And was a fan of the channel. He drove from Iowa to Fargo and bought a bunch of shit, and we got to be friends. Now he's on the channel. So yeah, and I tell these, and now I've added a female. I don't know if you guys have seen
Yeah, that's the one. That Maria, is it Maria?
Mariah. Mariah.
Mariah. Okay.
Mariah is 23. But her dad was a hair metal fanatic, and she just grasped onto that. I mean, she knows hair metal just as much as most of these guys that come on for 23 years old. So she was commenting on all my videos, and with really intelligent stuff. I'm like, geez. I'm like, what? And she followed me on X. So and one day I was like, you want to come on? And now she's kind of become a regular. And, so it's nice to have a girl on the channel. So it's just not all dudes. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think she has her own little fan club. She's 23. She's really attractive. So, but she knows hair metal, and that's why she's on. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Now, how many shows a week do you do, just for people out there that might want to check your channel out?
Yeah, and it's hair metal. The Hair Metal Guru is the name of the channel. You can follow me on X at Hair Metal Guru. I probably should have said that shit earlier. But I usually record every Wednesday with Brian from the Hairband Basement, and then so I'm always with him. Sometimes we'll add a person. Sometimes we'll turn that day into a roundtable. Thursdays I usually record with Ryan, who's a firefighter out in California. And Mariah has started jumping on some of those. So I usually record 2 with those guys. And then I usually maybe last night I recorded one. I collect all this shit. I started getting cassettes from eBay. So last night I made one by myself. I got 30 cassettes that I went over. So I usually do one on my own. So I usually do about 3 a week.
Okay. Now, do you do? I've seen some on your channel. You do the reels and shorts. You just do them randomly when you feel like it.
Randomly. And I probably should do more, because that's probably a good way to get followers. Because, I mean, if you're gonna, a minute short, pretty easy for anybody. Not everybody wants to watch 2-hour videos, which is a lot of what I do. So, but yeah, those are just random.
Yeah. Well,
how often do you guys do stuff?
Well, that's what we only do, one show a week, and now we're getting into doing live streams every so often.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna ask you as far as channel goes. Do you have any suggestions for people starting out, how to grow the channel in any way, shape, or form?
So there's a couple other guys that have been on the channel. They're also from North Dakota. Their channel is called Rock Resurgence Radio, and they're from Minot, North Dakota, which is about 4 hours from me. And they emailed me, and they were like, "Hey, really like the channel. We want to do something, And they were asking for advice, and I'm like, number one, just hit record, because I think a lot of people overthink it, and they're like, oh, they want to have this perfect plan and everything, and you can overthink it, and you can shoot down ideas. And the best thing I ever did was one day just pulled up some Warrant CDs, and I'm like, here we go. And I'm like, I don't know, do I write down everything that I'm going to say, or do I just talk out so I just fucking hit record, pardon my language. And then then it was about, hey, how do you edit? Well, I didn't know how to edit shit, but I went to YouTube and watched, hey, what are some simple, how do I get rid of the shit how do I get rid of stuff that I don't want? I started learning simple editing techniques, and that's, and then Metal Mike was like, hey, dude, you got to go on Facebook. So now I have a Hair Metal Guru Facebook page, and I follow all these music sites, and so every time I put a video out, now I go to all these music pages and I share them. So if you follow a hard rock hair metal Facebook page that has 15,000 followers, you're not going to get all of them, but hey, if you get 100 of them to click on your video and hopefully think it's good, that's so I remember the very first video I ever did, I wore a Tough shirt, and Stevie Rochelle I had friended him on Facebook. So I'm like, hey, dude, I just started a YouTube channel and wore a Tough shirt in my first video. He shared it with all his followers. He's like, hey, check this guy out. And so boom, that, got a bunch of subscribers from that. But, I just tell people, I'm like, man, be honest and be excited, because if, sometimes I think about when I click on a video, and if in the first 5 seconds or 10 seconds, I'm hearing, hi, today I'm going to talk about, I'm like, I'm out. I mean, because there's so much
Yeah.
shit to watch. So and I'm not, so I always start all my videos off with a montage. I don't, if you see my stuff, it's usually about a minute long. I try to have some funny shit. So I watch the video, I clip out like, oh, there's a 5-second thing where somebody called me a ballad loving pussy. And I'm like, shit, I think that's hilarious. At the beginning, and then, the big joke from Brian from the Hairband Basement is like, how long is it going to take until we get a jerk off joke? And I hope it's okay if I talk that way. But
Oh yeah, our
You're
language
good.
is
shit.
free ball.
So,
Yeah.
I'm putting that shit in the first minute, because I'm wanting them to see something that, like, oh fuck, hey, these guys are hopefully they might think we're kind of funny, hopefully they'll know we're passionate, so that's some of the stuff that I've done to try to make hopefully my videos stand out, along with the other good channels, I guess.
Very cool. Very
So
cool.
when are we going to get you over onto Rumble too?
Shit, and you know what? I should be on Rumble, because I'm I don't talk much politics, but I like what Rumble stands for,
Yeah.
and freedom of speech and not censoring. I hate that about YouTube. I hate that about a lot of shit. The only reason, and so I should start adding to Rumble. The only thing that I will give YouTube is I am monetized right now. So I
Okay.
do make a little, I have subscriptions, I don't have a lot, probably have 10 people are paying a little monthly fee, and they get like early access to videos. I try to always respond to their comments. So I should start putting my shit on Rumble. I haven't really played around with it that much.
Very easy. Very easy to do.
Usually me coming to Rumble is to watch your shit, or sometimes like Steven Crowder will share shit on Rumble and I'll go there. So I
Yeah.
follow guys like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Well, and it's
Well,
definitely, you got to expand a little bit. So that
Yeah.
was kind of our big thing. It's like we're going to pay a little bit more attention to Rumble first,
Yep.
and then to YouTube. And I've got it set up when we do a live stream that it goes right through my account, so everybody could catch it on X.
Sure.
So we're trying that triple threat thing,
Yeah. And
just to try to get the exposure out there.
I want to start to do live streams. I honestly don't even know how to do them yet. I know, like,
You're more than welcome to join us on a live stream.
I will. Absolutely. I've released one video that I did. I released it directly to X. I did put it on YouTube, but I'm like, you know what? I appreciate X for being, I appreciate Elon for buying it and being a free speech. Some people wonder if he's all that free speech, but you know what, not censoring like the old owners of Twitter were censoring everything.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what, I I thought about trying to do that, and because I mean, I won't lie. I mean, I hope to you know, I coach basketball. I train kids. I do YouTube. I have my little side business selling this stuff. So sure, would I like to be able to make enough money doing music and doing this to, not to just live off that, but to say, hey, you know what, like hey, I can. This is helping me to live the lifestyle. So yes, I do want to make money. It's not the only reason I do it, but I do. I'm not against making money doing this.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't be either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were both in the same band. Mikey was in the band with me for 24 years. And so, that was the side thing that we did for
Sure.
all those years.
Sure.
And doing your own music and stuff like that. And, right now I'm kind of trying to get things going again with the band and has been on a little hiatus. And it was like, let's do something. And that's kind of, I'm tapping Mikey saying, dude, you want to,
Yes.
he already had like his podcast. And it's
Yes.
like, well, do you want to do a music podcast?
Right. Yeah. And that's where, I assume, I mean, like Jizzy Pearl from Love Hate is doing one now. And I envision a lot of these rock stars, these 80s rock stars, that as they start to realize, you know what, I can't do it anymore, like vocally or whatever, or it's just not profitable. I bet we start seeing some of them because hey, they want to still talk music. They want to, they want to be known for being, for being about music, which, is kind of what people know me for. And so I think we'll start seeing that as another alternative for a way to stay involved with an audience, maybe make a little bit of money. But I never figured I would make any money. And I don't really make much at all. I make a little bit, but I never thought I would make anything. So I'm like, hey, you know what? If I'm making this little bit right now, and I have 3,800 subscribers, which, bless their hearts, that's amazing. But then I look at some other channels. There's, if you know, Sea of Tranquility, Pete Pardo, and I like his stuff. Dude has 100,000 subscribers. I'm like, he must have. I'm sure he's been doing this for a long time, and he does good stuff. But I'm like, fuck. At 100, if I had 100,000 subscribers, I'd be making some fairly decent money doing this. So anyway,
Yeah. That would be awesome. But yeah,
yeah,
we're in the same boat. We don't do it for money, but yeah, money never hurts.
of course.
Never hurts.
I mean, if I wasn't making anything, I would still do it just because I love talking about music and to open up the opportunities to meet new people and to interview people that when I was a kid I worshipped.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I have one major question about the '80s hair metal for you. Would be an underrated band and an overrated band. Which one do you think is the most overrated and underrated? I think I know the underrated, but you might surprise me.
um I'll start with underrated and I'll tell you five because there are five albums that I have gone out of my way to try to promote since the beginning of the channel. And there's a lot more, but right behind me, Wild Side, Under the Influence. If you see that chick in the blue, now I can't fucking tell where I'm pointing.
Yeah.
Right beside that, Sleazebees, Screwed, Blued, and Tattooed.
Okay.
I
From
remember them. I do
1990.
remember them. Yeah, I
And
remember them.
yes, DAD, No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims. They had a minor hit with a song called Sleeping My Day Away. That album
Disney
is
After Dark, right?
Yep.
Yep.
McQueen Street had a self-titled album in 1991. Nobody knows about them.
No.
No.
And in 1990, a band called Electric Angels, and
Oh.
another one that record company not got zero promotion. Their bass player and main songwriter is a guy named Jonathan Daniel. He's actually like a major um, music manager. Like he manages like Courtney Love and some of the big pop punk bands. Um, and their singer Shane is actually is my friend on Facebook. We chat every now and then. But those 5 albums, I've just are perfect, and I've always told people like, man, if you get nothing from my channel, please visit those 5 albums because they deserve so much better than they got.
Well, that's interesting. I only knew a couple of them out of
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
yeah, that's something I'll check out
And,
myself.
and probably my best performing videos are those videos where I say, hey, here's 10 bands you maybe never heard of. People love that. And I mean, that's like, it's hard for me to sit and listen to Bon Jovi and Poison and shit because I played the shit out of that when I was younger. So I'm
Yeah.
always looking for new bands. And I think there's probably a lot of people like me or like us who, want to know, like, hey, what did I miss? Because there was some fantastic stuff that, whether it was record label politics or what have you, that, could have been the next Cinderella, but, ended up doing one album and got dropped because, whatever happened, the label dropped the ball. So, and,
Yeah, you're
and,
right.
and as
100%.
far as overrated, shit. It hurts me to say this, but I used to worship Motley Crue, but I've just since the 1994 album, which I thought was great with John Corabi, everything I
Yeah.
everything they did I thought was horrible, and I hated the, hey, we signed this contract and we can never tour again. I was like, and I know a lot, like Kiss has done that. I'm a big Kiss fan. Kiss
Yeah.
has done that a million times too, but it just, shit like that, and they're so bad live. Like, I mean, Vince can't, and so I just, a big disappointment is what has happened to Motley Crue over the last whatever years. I've really just kind of bailed on them. And so if that means they're overrated, back in the day, I don't think they were overrated. I love Shout at the Devil. Dr. Feelgood was great. Too Fast for Love. Theater of Pain
Yeah.
kind of sucked balls, but Girls, Girls, Girls was good. So, they were phenomenal and they were there at the beginning of hair metal, but watching them now is just kind of painful.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
100%. I'll chime in now.
Yeah. Good
I'll
Lord.
chime in now.
Please.
Yes, that was my group. It was more when we were younger. We hung out, and that was our idols.
Yeah.
Their
Totally.
attitude, and they were like a gang. I mean,
Yes.
you even talk to them in interviews, and yeah, we're like this little gang, and that kind of brought my group of friends
Yep.
together to hang out, and that was like the people we looked up to. And
Totally.
I've seen them 13, 14 times
Yep.
over and over. I mean, I got to see him on the Karabi tour, and it was just everybody was bitching about Vince and not really giving Karabi a chance.
Yeah.
So he kind of got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
I saw them when they reunited for the Generation Swine tour, and this is my only point. I like that album. I didn't
Yeah.
like every song,
Sure.
but I listened to it constantly. And I brought this point up with Mikey that we don't take the time to brainwash ourselves on some of these albums like we used to. We don't have the time to
Absolutely.
do that, to invest in it.
Yep.
And I think it's so important for you to get to where I really hate this song or I really love this song is by listening to it over and over. And who's got the time now?
Yeah.
And that's on our, that's our fault. We
Totally.
do this.
I've always said, like if you buy a new album, if you listen to it once and you go, that album sucks, I'm like, dude, man, do you know how many albums I listened to once and was like, eh? Wild Side, Under the Influence. I bought that cassette. I was like, this is like a Slaughter knockoff. This thing is not that good. But, back then when you were paying $13-14 for a cassette or a CD, you were like, fuck, I better listen to this. I better figure out if there's something good on it because I don't want to waste my $14. And so
Yeah.
then so I've always said you got to listen to it 4 or 5 times. And how many times have you been on the third turn went, wait a minute, that's kind of interesting. And on the fourth turn, like, wait, oh, there's a couple, like a lot of those albums grow up, but you're right. You're exactly right. We don't do that now. It's easy to listen to 20 seconds and skip because we're on YouTube or Spotify. And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of bands are probably putting out good stuff, but who gives it the time of day?
Yeah, I agree with
What?
that.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's tough to do, and especially if it doesn't hold your interest. If it
Yeah.
doesn't hold your interest right off the bat, you're like, you get one bad song maybe, and you're like, oh, this is crap,
Yeah.
and then you don't
Well,
give it another shot.
Yep.
It's
but is
sad.
that on the current recording industry? Is that they're doing? Is it the streaming services that are doing it? What do you think is causing that? Because it's kind of a ripoff to people who are going to invest in an album. I mean,
Yeah.
don't you think?
I mean, well, part of that is we don't have to invest anymore. I listen to a lot. I still buy CDs. I don't buy nearly as many as I used to, but my favorite bands, if they put out an album, I'm still buying that. If I hear about a new band, like I just reviewed the Crossbone Scully CD, I bought that because I heard some stuff, So if I hear some stuff and I like it, I'm gonna buy the CD. But but if you don't have to invest, and whose fault is that? Well, I guess it's the media or the music business in general because we've made it so easy. On the one hand, it's a good thing that hey, people have access to your stuff, so you can reach more of an audience, but you don't get that person going, okay, I'm going to give this thing, I'm going to sit down and just listen to this thing for an hour and I'm going to give it multiple listens. We're too, that fast food society, like, oh, I didn't like that song, I'm done, So I don't know. And can you fix it? Probably not, because even I'm guilty of it now. Like I'll get recommendations sometimes, and if I'm like, dude, that sucks, I don't sit and spin it 4 times like I used to. But
Right.
with the shit that I buy on CD, then I do, but yeah, you're not going to convince the younger generation who is on TikTok and all this stuff to sit down and give albums a big long whirl. I just don't think it's going to happen unless you're Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You get a couple songs off an album, and you might like that band, and
Right.
I'm guilty of that. There's a lot of bands I like, ton of bands, but could I name the whole album?
Sure.
No. I hear the songs I hear, and that's it. And I
And
move
and
on to the next.
and I think what Motley Crue is doing now is what a lot of bands, you aren't going to see not or some bands are going to put out albums, but a lot of bands are going to, hey, here's a single, here's a single, here's a single, and then maybe after we have 4 or 5 singles out, maybe we'll put it out as an EP. And
Right.
maybe that's smart. I don't like it. I would still love to see albums, but I understand it because most people aren't out buying albums. Hardcore fans might be, but most people are going, hey, Motley Crue put out a song. All right, I'll give that 3 minutes. But Motley Crue put out an album. All right, how many people are going to give it 40 minutes? Us hardcore fans are, but most fans aren't.
Exactly.
well, and
Yeah.
it's not cheap to produce this media. I
Yeah,
mean, you have the ability to produce actual LPs because I've looked into it for our band. What would it cost to do that? And it's not fucking cheap.
no,
And
no,
when you're a garage band that's a local band, not a lot of people want to invest that kind of money on the physical media. But that's the shit I love too. It's
totally.
like I want to give a CD with the
Yeah.
cover and lyrics or pictures. That's
Yes.
I'm hardcore into the physical medium, and
Yeah.
it's just it's gone away. It's they were saying you could have these cards that you could hand out so they could digitally download an album. I'm going, who wants a fucking card?
Yeah.
What the fuck is
I'm
that?
not. I love physical media. I still shit. I just my mom asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I was like, oh, I would love Hardline, Double Eclipse, and Rat on
Nice.
vinyl. So I still love that. And it's good to see that. I mean, you hear people talking about buying vinyl now these days. I joined a CD collecting group on Facebook, but it's kind of a niche market. Like my YouTube channel is a niche channel. There's a select group of people who love hair metal, who watch everything that I do. Well, there's a select group of people who still love fucking buying vinyl records and buying CDs. But I also have this hope is since I started this little business, I sell stuff like this. This is a vintage 1978 Kiss double platinum. I frame this stuff, and and I'm shocked at how many college kids are wanting to buy stuff like this and put it up in their dorm rooms. And they're like, yeah, my dad listened to this stuff all the time. And so I love, all this 80s music. And so they're buying shit for their apartments. So that's great to see. Is it ever going to come back the way it was? No. I mean,
No,
but we can
no.
keep the memory alive and hopefully keep turning new fans on to the music and hopefully getting them into, people want to have stuff. I think it's kind of retro now to have shit hanging in your house. And so hopefully
Yeah, I mean, I love the physical medium too. I had all that stuff, and some of it got burned, and some of it got stolen. But it's like I still like I still like to read covers. I still like inlay and see
totally,
where it was recorded,
totally.
little shit like that. When it was recorded, where it was recorded,
Yep.
even who the producer was,
Yep.
stuff like that, little stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not as important to people that are millennial, Gen Z,
No.
Alpha, whatever.
Yeah.
Us Gen Xers, I think the buck kind of stopped with us on
Yep.
that stuff.
But like I said, there's younger people now. When I was teaching, I'd have kids go, "So what were the 80s like?" And they're like infatuated. And we'd watch like old music videos, like Bon Jovi and shit. And they're flying around and they're like, "Wow, that just must have been," because what do they have that is like that? They don't have anything like that. So
No,
so they're intrigued by it. A lot of parents are getting their kids into it, which is kick ass. So like Mariah on my channel, 23 years old. I had another guy
right.
write me on X. I think he's 24. This guy, and he's like, my dad played this stuff. He goes, I play guitar. I want to start a band. He goes, I love hair metal, and I just wanted to thank you for talking. I'm like, shit, like that's so cool to hear these younger people getting into it. It's
Yeah.
great.
I
Well,
mean, I
it
wish
might
there was
be a
more of them.
resurgence, you know?
Right,
It
Yeah,
might.
you never know.
right. I mean, and that's the shit. I coach basketball, and every basketball game, you're gonna hear Van Halen and Journey and stuff like that played, and Kiss and AC/DC, and so yeah. I mean, it's like we were just saying when you were gone for a second. It's never gonna come back like it was. It's not gonna happen.
No.
But you can still keep it alive in on online, on channels like what we're doing, and you can still keep people talking about it. I mean, think about when in 1990 I was 18 years old. Nobody was talking about the music that was 40 years old, because that would have been like shit. I mean, I guess maybe talking about well, in 1940, I don't know what music was out in 1940, but now you still tons of people are talking about the 80s and the 70s. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
exactly.
doing what I can.
Well, it something had to beget the next and beget the next,
Yeah.
and uh, we talk about all sorts of music. I mean, we try to stick with the hard rock
Yep.
and the heavy metal
Yep.
and every time we do anything about hair bands or any bands in that era, it always seems to be the ones that seem to get the most highlight.
Yep.
And it's like people still love this genre and this era. They still, I mean, even the pop 80s stuff
Sure.
is huge. I mean, they call, you know, some guy did a episode and he's kind of high profile and he was hating on everybody calling Journey and them yacht rock.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, welcome to the fucking hair metal bands.
Yeah.
We, you know, we had to put up with that for how fucking long, and now you're butt hurt over fucking yacht rock. Come on,
Well,
fucking give me a break.
I like yacht rock, so I can't complain. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I get, you know, people probably don't like that name, and people hated the term hair metal for years. I used to hate the term. You know, I used to be like, don't call it hair metal. It's a fucking put down. But it seems like over the last 7-8 years, people have just been like, you know what? Not only are we not going to hate it, we're actually going to take it and turn it around and make it a positive. You have Hair Nation. You have,
Yes.
you know, so all these people are using it now. So I no longer, you know, and I still get on videos all the time, dude, don't call it hair metal. It's such a put down. I'm like, you know what? I've gotten over it. We've taken it back and made it our own, you know?
Well, own it. Own the fucking shit. Yeah, you had big hair. At least you had fucking hair, you know?
Right. And I said this, I made this kind of comparison. You know, when grunge came out and everybody was looking like they could have been the guy that, you know, worked at the gas station, there was no excitement about that. Like look at a band like Poison. We all my friends loved Poison. If a dude would have showed up to our high school looking like CC DeVille, he would have gotten his ass beat. But we all loved Poison. So this was the analogy that I made. I said, you know, we want Superman to be wearing the kick-ass costume and to look like something we could never dream about. You know, and those hair metal bands, we would have never dreamed of going to school or walking around the mall looking like that. They were like mythical figures. But after that, all the, you know, the grunge bands wearing, you know, tennis shoes and ripped jeans and t-shirts, like we could do that. So there was no mystique about it. So, you know, we wanted our heroes to look otherworldly like Superman. We didn't want Superman wearing jeans and a t-shirt when he came to save us.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
it's a pretty good analogy. That's a real good
over the
analogy
top
right there.
music. You know,
Right.
over the top music, over the top looks.
Right.
That's what sticks in your brain.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the draw now, is because you don't have that. You didn't have that in the 90s or the 2000s really. And you know what kind of, you know, what are people looking at now? I don't know. You know, like I couldn't tell you what kind of, I mean, I'm sure rap is really popular, but for kids who want something different, you know, a lot of them are starting to listen to those old 80s records, you know, and maybe that their parents were playing, and they have something new, you know, and for them it's kind of their own, you know, like, hey, not everybody knows about this. I got my I got my own thing. Like I used to love, you know, knowing all these obscure bands that my friends didn't know about. So even I have an 18-year-old son. He's a senior in high school, and he likes like Kanye West and shit. But he also will, you know, when he's with his friends, talk about 80s rock, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, because I used to teach at this high school, and they're like, yeah, Kiss. Man, that was crazy. Those guys wore makeup like for 10 years. You know, anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So how many shows have you been to? We kind of do the show where we go to see live bands. Do you have the opportunity where you're at to go out to any shows?
I don't get to as many now, but back in the day, I mean, and if you counted festivals, I've probably seen 400 concerts. I don't know. You know, if you count stuff like that, you know, we used to go to all these festivals for 4 days and see bands. But in the 90s, we were getting a lot of bands in Fargo. I live in Fargo. It's about 130,000 people. It's the biggest city in North Dakota. So we had a couple rock clubs where you would get, especially in the 90s, the Warrants and the bands that, used to be big but now could play to 3 to 500 people. I used to go to a lot of shows in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is about 3.5 hours from me. So, I quit drinking 20 years ago. I used to be a good drinker and concert goer. And, the drinking kind of got out of control. So I still like going to concerts. And we don't get as many in Fargo now. Like
Okay.
there's
Right.
Ace Frehley's coming in a couple weeks to a
Oh,
casino that's
yes.
about 60 miles away. I plan on going to see that.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah, he
But
still puts on a real good show.
I
He
have
does.
seen Ace solo, and I saw Kiss a ton of times, and saw Ace solo at a small theater in Fargo. It was phenomenal. That was years ago. So yeah, I'm hoping to go, and I might bring my son to see him here in a couple weeks. So
Oh,
Nice.
that'd be cool.
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you and Mikey are probably card carrying Kiss Army members. Am I
Oh
correct?
shit.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
I have so
I
much
was.
Kiss shit in my house. I'm like, Gene Simmons owes me fucking big time because every time he puts out some worthless piece of Kiss memorabilia, I'm like, fuck, that thing's worthless. Add to carts. Check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, Gene, I'll fucking buy it. Might as well.
Oh
Yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
This
That's
this
great.
wall, this wall used to be all Kiss. Um, I changed some of the things right behind me because I was like, I wanted to show off some bands that I like. But you can see this right here is a Kiss. That's a 1974 ad for the debut album from
Nice.
Cream Magazine. You don't
Oh
find
yeah.
much original 1974 Kiss shit. So I'm a huge Kiss collector, and I do love the music of Kiss, but I also love the idea of Kiss. Like my first Kiss memory is watching Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. I would have been about 6,
Yeah.
and I remember, so to me they were superheroes. I didn't even care about the music. I was like, they're just like Superman. But I remember going to school after that and telling my teacher that I watched this Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park movie. And my teacher, and this is small town North Dakota, goes, "You know that KISS stands for Knights in Satan's Service." And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, the fucking 70s were wild shit, man.
Oh
Oh
my God!
yeah.
Right out of Detroit Rock City
Yep,
movie.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, that was such a good movie, and it just bombed at the box office, but it was hilarious.
It's a cult classic. I
It
mean,
is.
my son loves that fucking movie.
Oh,
He's like, "Oh,
yeah.
that's a cool movie, Dad."
Yeah, well, and I was talking to somebody about, one of the big I thought when Kiss got back together in 96 that Psycho Circus was going to be just massive, that the Kiss reunion album. And that bombed, that the
Yeah.
movie Detroit Rock City bombed, but when they got back together in 96, fuck, they sold out everywhere. They were so massive. But the album just, yeah, it kind of went out without a whimper. So
Well, the concert
Yeah.
was fucking cool
yeah,
because you had to. They said put on your 3D glasses,
yep,
and you would put on the 3D glasses, and they had the big screens.
yep,
And Ace was like doing this with his guitar, and it was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
my puppies are paging me.
Yep.
Go ahead, guys.
Oh,
No
all
problem.
right.
No problem.
So yeah, I was a big kid. I'm a few years older than you.
Yeah.
So when Kiss was like the first concert I ever went to,
Okay.
and it was
What tour was that?
Love Gun. Love Gun.
Love Gun. Oh
So
shit.
the Alive 2, my mom took me. I was 8, 9 years old,
Yep.
whatever it was. And I mean, I had to go back because I got Alive was the first album I ever heard.
Yep.
So I had to backtrack as a kid. But, as a kid, you don't really care. You're listening to everything. But I think once Destroyer hit, that was really it for me. It's like, oh, these guys are great.
Oh
And
yeah.
Love Gun was after that. And I still consider Alive 2 to be one of the best live albums of all time.
Sure.
And right in from that, the double platinum.
Yep.
Then I got disappointed with Dynasty a little bit.
Oh, sure.
I
And
mean,
Unmasked. I was.
yeah, I wasn't anyone. The Lick It Up kind of brought it back,
Yep.
and they had that and Animalize, but I kind of lost touch with Kiss in the mid '80s.
Sure.
But yeah, I was a big Kiss Army guy
Well,
as a very young man, I should say.
my first, like, so I remember watching Kiss Meets the Phantom, but the first time I remember really listening to their music was like 8th grade, and my cousin, we were both in the same grade. We had a summer job together. Well, her boyfriend was like 2 years older and had a car, and he had 2 cassettes in his car: Kiss, Love Gun, and some John Cougar Mellencamp shit. And so I listened to Kiss Love Gun for like an entire summer, and I was like, fuck. So that was the first time I remember thinking, I really do like Kiss's music. And that would have been, 8th grade. So I'm 13, 14. But the first Kiss thing that I bought on my own was Crazy Nights, because that was 87. So I
Oh,
was probably 15. So that was about when I started buying my own music. So Crazy Nights was out. And, it's not an album that has aged dramatically well, but I loved it when it came out.
yeah, I thought that was a decent album too. I didn't really. I guess I didn't really fall off with them until what you were talking about earlier when they did the farewell tour
Yeah.
and said we're done. After that, I lost kind of respect for them, and they kept
Yeah.
coming back for the
Oh,
money
totally.
shows and
Yeah.
money tours, and I mean I knew they were like that. They've been like that with all the stuff you collect. I'm sure you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
But yeah, I fell off with the after the tour. Like me and Skeeter talked about that. Them and Motley Crue both. I wasn't a huge Motley Crue fan anyway, but that tour farewell stuff and coming back drives me insane.
Totally.
Doesn't matter who it
Totally.
is.
The only thing that and it doesn't make it okay, but Gene Simmons is so blatantly out front with, hey, I am greedy. I do want your money. So at least he's
Yeah.
not lying about it, like where other bands are like, hey, yeah, we're doing this. We're just trying to give something extra to the fans, like
Oh
no, you
shit.
want the money. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, shit. Kiss's first farewell tour was, I think, 2003. And then they were still going 20 fucking years later. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I got over, and I mean, at least when they were still putting on good shows. Now, Motley is it's difficult for me. Like Vince, if you go watch, and I've seen Motley over the last, 12 years, couple times. It's hard to listen to Vince, and I know, I mean, shit, a lot of that stuff is difficult to sing, and he's
Yeah.
an older dude, but it just like, I'm like, oh fuck, it's hard to
Yeah.
listen.
I
Well,
seen them this summer at a festival in Kentucky, and he was about 50-50. Like
Yeah,
half the songs he did, he sounded all right, and the
sure.
other half was a train wreck.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be too enthusiastic about it when it's
Yes.
well,
50%. Yeah.
in all fucking honesty, though, I saw Iron Maiden a few years back in 2019, and Bruce Dickinson still sounds fucking good. So
Yeah.
it's kind of on the artist's fault that they smoke
Sure.
and drink and get fat, and
Sure.
Vince Meal.
Right.
Everybody's heard
Yeah.
that joke.
Oh,
Vince Meal.
completely right. A lot of that is lifestyle and decisions that you made.
Don Dokken, guilty of the same shit. I think he even admits it himself. Oh,
He's
I still
bad.
smoke or I still do
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah, he's bad. He's bad, bad.
You,
Yeah, it's depressing to watch Don Dokken
yeah.
now.
Oh, we saw the Red River Valley Fair in Fargo had like 3 bands one day, and shit. Now I'm gonna forget, but I think Winger was one of them. Lita Ford, and shit, maybe Kicks, and then Dawkin was the last one. And my friends are like, "Well, should we?" And I'm like, "He's pretty rough vocally," so we left and didn't stay. And then we heard later, like, "Yeah, it was horrible." I mean, the,
Yeah,
the guitar player is singing a lot of the harmonies to try to even it out, but Don's pretty rough. You know, I will say
Yeah.
Kiss was really good for most of the years, but when I just saw him, I saw the farewell show in Grand Forks, and Paul was starting to struggle. Gene still sounded fine, but Paul was starting to have a lot of like, oh shit, Paul, what the fuck was that? You know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Gene's still out now. He's doing a full
Oh
blown
yeah.
tour with his own band. So he's still trucking
Shit.
along.
Shit, I'll throw this out there. I saw Gene at a casino 8 years ago with my son, and at the very end, he goes, "The first 20 people that get up here on stage, you get to sing rock and roll all night with me." Well, I was with my son in the back, and he was like 8. He was on my shoulders. I fucking took off. I went down this hallway and went in a side door just as he's getting ready, and somebody, my kid was like one of the only kids at the show. Somebody goes, "Gene, get that kid." So my son got to go up on stage, and he got to be like, Gene put his sunglasses on him and was grabbing his, like, he was the
Wow.
star. All these other adults were up there, but like my son. So I put it on YouTube. I'm like, West Fargo fifth grader gets to sing with Gene Simmons a Kiss. That thing went, he was on the news in Fargo and all in North Dakota. That video got like 17,000 views. It was like, it was crazy. So it was pretty awesome.
That's
It's,
awesome, man.
you gotta bring up that next generation, man.
Yeah, shit,
Yeah.
yes. And my son's kind of a quiet kid, but he was fucking up there going rock and roll all night. It was epic.
That's awesome.
Ah, oh,
So you
yeah.
want to go to Mikey? Are you ready to do the 10 questions? And we ask everybody, and we've only had a few guests, but we're gonna do our 10 questions.
Sure.
Good.
All right, Mike. Do you have a copy, or is it on me? Okay,
That's
I've
on
got
you. I
All
don't
right.
have a copy.
We are going to go with question number 1. Favorite band now?
Now, oof. I'll give you a couple. There's a band called the Creeps from Canada, and they're not hair metal. They kind of have maybe a little bit of pop punk, some mellow shit. They have an album called Beneath the Pines that they put out, I bet 4 or 5 years ago, and I do not get tired of that album. It's really kind of deep and dark at times. You know, it's got stuff that I relate to more, being, divorced and 52 years old and a recovering alcoholic. You know, a lot of those lyrics kind of tackle stuff that I look back over my life and go, wow, you guys wrote some stuff that at points in my life it felt like you really understood what I was going through. So that's the
Cool.
Creeps Beneath the Pines
Creep.
is a band or an album. Then there's a band called The Right Here in Minneapolis, and they're kind of a punk rock band. You know, the guy's got to be around 30 years old. I have no clue how I discovered him. And they put out an album called the Northern Inn, and another album. Now I can't remember the name of it, but I've just been listening to that band, The Right Here from Minneapolis, for a couple of years now. And so that's, I still like, I'm always searching out new bands, and not just rock, like lighter rock stuff, singer songwriter stuff. But those are two that I've been listening to a shitload for the last couple of years.
Cool.
Nice, nice. Question number 2. Favorite band of all time?
That's a tough one.
It's a toughie, and I musically, there's probably been points where I would have said AC/DC, points where I may have said Kiss, but it probably a band that I felt like was my own, and I got to see them at small clubs and hang out is Warrant. I got to hang out with Janie Lane a few times.
Ah,
I think Dog Eat Dog is one of the greatest albums of all time from 1992. The album they put out in 1995, Ultraphobic, I still listen to regularly. And just the fact that I got on stage with them, I got to drink on their tour bus with them. Like, weird shit happened when I went to these Warrant concerts, just made me feel closer to them than other bands. So I might say Warrant would be my favorite.
I love Janie Lane. Yeah,
Oh,
he was one of my big ones back in.
unbelievably talented. And I've always said, man, back in the day, he never missed a note, and he was so funny on stage. Like he could just command a crowd of 20,000 like nothing. And I thought he was one of the best performers I'd ever seen.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. All right. Question number 3. Favorite song of all time.
Oh,
Ooh.
shit.
I
We hit
forgot
the
about how
hard
these
questions,
questions
man.
were.
That's a
We hit the
and,
hard
and,
ones.
and I saw, like, I looked at the question and I was like, I still okay. I tattooed "I Saw Red" on my arm by Warrant, and that was like had a lot of meaning in my life. The first girl I ever thought was like gonna be the one, and it just ended. And then a year later, "I Saw Red" comes out, and I listen to the song, and I'm like, holy shit! I'm like that. It wasn't it's not like I found this girl cheating on me like happened in the song, but when you feel like, oh, this is the one, like I found my forever person, and boom, it ended. And that song talked about that moment. And so it meant enough to me that I was like, damn. So I tattooed it on my arm. So I'll go with "I Saw Red" from Warrant, with the caveat that I could name a shit ton of other songs that would be very close
Yeah.
there. So I'll say "I Saw Red" by Warrant.
Oh, nice, nice. Number 4. Favorite concert. What was your
Um,
favorite concert? Is it? If it's probably going to be the Warrant because you had the interaction.
okay, so if it's okay if I can, so yes, Warrant getting pulled up on stage at, it was called the Iron Horse in Minneapolis, right outside of Crystal, Minnesota, right on the outskirts of Minneapolis. That was a moment that I'll never forget. But I also, if I can add, the first time I saw Kiss was a Hot in the Shade tour. It was my second major concert. I had seen REO Speedwagon and Richard Marx when I was like a ninth grader, and that was cool. But that Kiss show with Slaughter and Faster Pussycat opening, and
Ooh.
Kiss played like 23 songs, and that was like a moment where everything clicked for me, is like where music went from being like, hey, I really like music, to holy shit, music is my thing. And that concert will, so for that reason, that concert would be my number one. But the Warrant show, with getting to be on stage and everything, it's hard to pick between those two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh shit. Number 5. Now this one's always kind of rough. Who is your least favorite artist?
Um, I would probably,
And
shit.
you don't have to stick to your genre of
No,
you don't your preferred
no.
genre. You could pick anybody.
I would say like here's like Nirvana, and here's what I liked some Nirvana songs. It's not like I hated their music, but I hated the fact that they and other bands in grunge just shit on hair metal. I never remembered, like bands coming out and just shitting on what had come before them like grunge did. And when Nirvana first came out, I was a freshman in college, and I just thought, oh hey, here's like another kind of band that's also heavy. You had your Warrants and Poisons, you have your Metallicas, your Suicidal Tendencies, and I thought, oh well, these grunge bands are just another flavor of metal. But pretty soon it became, no, you had to hate hair metal when I mean, you had to absolutely hate it when grunge came out. And I kind of give uh, Kurt Cobain credit for that. I think he was one of the instigators of that. So for that reason, I'll say. But I fucking hated new metal. I fucking hated Limp Bizkit and Corn and that shit. I was like, these guys are just jumping around, like yelling, fucking, they can't sing. I didn't understand what they were saying. So I hated that shit too. There's a lot of shit I probably hated, but so there's a couple.
I figured you might throw out Nikki Sixx since he fucking banned you on X, right?
And he booted me on X, and Tommy Lee booted me on X while now I'm unbooted by him. And I would have said that, but I couldn't because of what they created and it being such a huge part of something that I love.
Yeah.
But
Separate the artist from the art.
Tracy Guns is another guy who booted me on X, and he's kind of a douchebag. And Sebastian Bach is kind of a douchebag. He also
Yeah.
unfollowed me on or blocked me on X. Some of these guys, you know, and not to get political, sometimes it's political.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
you know, like them just being so you know, like against a large group of people based on politics and just being complete ass, like Sebastian Bach saying "fuck America." I did a
Yeah.
video.
That was bullshit.
I did a
Yeah,
video
that pissed
on
me
that,
off too.
and I, you know, I was like here, you know, you're from Canada. You came here. You got famous. You got rich. You got all these things that so many people would die for. And yet, because your candidate didn't win, you're like, fuck America. I'm like, you know what? I did 22 years in the military. I deployed a couple times. I just was really offended by that. So, yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. Amen.
And
I
I
agree
love
with you.
Skid Row. I love Skid Row. Shit. Love that band.
So okay, on a sidebar, what did you think of Lizzie Hale filling in on
I
4
mean, I
shows?
thought she sounded really good. I mean, she could sing it. I didn't think she was ever gonna be the singer. You know, I figured it was a temper. I thought Eric Gronwall sounded great. You know, on the stuff he did. I thought The Gang's All Here was a pretty solid album. You know, so now they're kind of starting to look ridiculous because they're going through singers every fucking 8 months, it seems like. They've had so many singers. So I hope they find somebody and can crank out an album and have some stability. But I always used to be like, Sebastian's such a dick. And the guys in Skid Row seem nice, but you wonder, why can't they keep somebody? You know? I don't know.
Yeah. Good question there.
Well, it just might be band dynamic. You know
Right?
what I mean?
Well,
If
like with Eric Gronwald, they never even met him. Like they met him when they rehearsed for a couple days before they did a residency in Vegas. You know, to me, you know, back in the old day, you'd hang out with a guy, you'd play some shows. He was in the band, they never even met. So he was a young guy. Maybe they got on a bus and they were like, "Fuck, this guy's a douchebag," or maybe he was like, "These guys are douchebags." I don't know.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
All right, let's go to number 6. The most influential album for you.
Oh, influential. Jeez, guys, that's a good one. I've said at times on the channel, there's not a band I identified with more than Skid Row in 1989. I mean, when I heard Youth Gone Wild, I was like, you know, I was 17. I was like, oh, these, you know, that's, you know, when you're 17, you feel so oppressed and nobody gets you, and you get older and you're like, I really didn't have it that bad, you know. So
Yeah.
there's that, but I think Dog Eat Dog. I remember would have been 20 when Dog Eat Dog came out, and a lot of people were like, "What's this? It sucks." So I just love that album. I still do, and I think as time has gone on, it's come to mean more to me. So I think Dog Eat Dog might be an album that's really just kind of hit me right here. Janie Lane was always like my favorite singer, favorite performer, and that album was him at its best. And you know, like when I was going through problems in my life, there was a, you know, when Janie Lane was, the booze started taking control, you could see it on that album. I was an alcoholic, so I was like, I used to listen to those songs and go, fuck, you know, All My Bridges Are Burning was something that I really related to for a long time. So I think I'd say Warrant Dog Eat Dog.
Nice.
Ooh.
Well, number 7 is favorite genre or your favorite genre. So I kind of think we know the answer to that one.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep. Yeah, we'll say hair metal, but you know, it's like a lot of people are surprised to hear that. Like I like pop punk, and shit like that. I like a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, but hair metal is always, it's just been the thing that gripped me. And even in the late 90s, people would give me shit for always talking about 80s rock. So it was always my thing.
Yeah, I've got hammered for that before too. So
Sure.
number 8, most embarrassing blunder.
Embarrassing blunder, like in music or?
Well, Mikey, you want to give him a little rundown of what
Well,
this
I
is?
mean, it was. I think those questions, some of them were for our first guest or two that were
Sure.
in bands,
Yep.
but you could use your channel, you could use any personal
Sure.
concert thing that happened to you, just
Okay.
something where you're like, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
Kind of
Well,
screwed up.
the worst one on the channel was there's been so many beat off and masturbation jokes on that channel. But anyway, I recorded a whole episode with my buddy Jeremy, and then got done, and I was like, "Fuck, I never hit the record button." So I had to call him later, and I'm like, "Hey, do you mind coming back on and re-recording that thing because I forgot to hit the record button?" And he was really cool about it. So that was embarrassing. Um, I think at a concert, I went and saw Weezer once, and one of my buddies, and I was drunk, and one of my buddies pulled my shorts down, and I wasn't wearing any underwear, and I tried to be cool, so I just sat there for a little bit. I was like, oh, and I just calmly reached down, and there were so many people around who saw it, and the next day I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? Anyway, that was kind of embarrassing the day after, so I'll go with those two.
Oh shit!
Yeah, those are pretty good. I like that. I like.
Yeah.
All right, number 9, hardest celebrity death. What person in rock and roll or heavy metal or hair metal? What was the hardest death for you?
For sure, Janie Lane. And when he died, it was shit. Now I think it's August 11th of 2011, and strangely enough, the next day, Warrant and Skid Row were playing 70 miles away from me in Grand Forks. So I started writing the night. A buddy of mine texted me. He's like, "Hey, are you online?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, and he was a big Warrant fan. He goes, "Lane's dead." And I just, even right now, like thinking about it, like I have goosebumps thinking, because I was like, holy shit, the guy was only 47 years old. So I go on Twitter, and all the hair metal fans, Janie Lane was found dead in a hotel. And I was just, and part of the reason that because in 2011, I got sober July 4th of 2004. So I really, when my life was falling apart was right when his was. Like in 1990, I was a senior in high school. Everything was great. By 1995, when he was writing Ultraphobic, it was starting to get out of control. I was going to drop out of college. So it was like I could see myself in each one of his albums as they went from, yeah, party rock and everything's awesome, to, wait a minute, things are going bad. Like I really saw myself in that. So I started writing my thoughts on Janie Lane, and just all the times I'd seen them, all the times I'd been on stage a couple times, I'd been on the tour bus multiple times, backstage, drinking with the band and all sorts of shit. And so that next day I went to the show with a buddy of mine, and it was so eerie. And a lot of the article was about Cherry Pie, and him, like, there's this interview where he said he could shoot himself in the fucking head for writing that song. Well, he was obviously wasted during that interview. But I wrote, like, I couldn't even sit and watch them play that song. I was like, I walked around the arena, and the article, it was on Sleaze Rocks. It kind of ended with, I always wondered why I was able to quit drinking and go on and do the things that I wanted to do. And this, my musical hero, his demons took him down. and I did a video. That's actually the best performing video. I did a video, and it was called shit. Like my story with Janie Lane of Warrant. It was something like that was the title, and I got like 28,000 views, which was shocking. It was one of the first videos I did. But yeah, that was it, and it just hit me like just hard, and it was so sad because he was 47, and you're like, shit, the guy was such a talented guy. You would have thought like, shit, nowadays he could be writing like ballads for country singers and doing very well, but he could just never shake that bottle. And I remember seeing him in those 95, 96, 97, 98, and I saw how, he would take a drink every now and then on stage, but later on, it was like there would be a shot of Cuervo like every 15, 20 minutes, which is you're like, holy shit, that's a lot of shots over the.
Yeah.
And so anyway, like my life could have ended up like his. So I always felt we were kind of intertwined. So I know I went on for a long time about that, but
Oh no, that's fine.
yeah, that
Oh,
was
you're fine, man.
that was the one. That was
Well,
the one.
and for you to have a video that hit like that, that's an authentic feeling that you had
Yep.
with the artist and at that time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's what always hit us about any bands.
Oh, sure.
Are they authentic?
Sure.
Are they really like this?
And like you talked about Motley Crue, like you believed that they were all for one for all. I mean, you felt like even if you never met them, you felt like, hey, they are my people.
Yes.
Some of those like Skid Row, Youth Gone Wild. I'm like, I never got to hang out with the guys in Skid Row, but I felt like I would have been welcomed by them. Like they would have taken me under their wing and been like, hey, you're one of us. That's what that music did to you. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's hard sometimes to meet your heroes.
Oh shit. Yes. And like I never saw Janie Lane like be like an asshole, but I heard stories, and it's not like I got to hang out with him for hours and hours. I was on a tour bus with him for half an hour once, got to sit with him, but I can only imagine what happened some nights when he was just out of his mind drunk, and I've heard stories that people were like, it wasn't pretty. And if you saw some of the live videos when he got back together with Warrant in like 2008, they did like 4 shows and he was fine. And then they played Vegas and there's clips of it on YouTube and he's gone. Like he's slurring the words, he's stumbling. Like if you get a close up of his eyes, you're like, he's not there. Like I don't know who was walking around on that stage, but it did not seem like. And the crowd's booing him, and the band, you can just tell they're like, motherfucker, our 5th show, and you're fucking just gone. And so he left the band shortly after that, and yeah, sad.
That's hard.
Yeah,
seeing
that
that.
is.
It is.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
All right, let's try to go and bring this mood back up a little bit.
There you go.
Number 10. What is your most valuable memory from music?
Geez, I mean, there's been so many. Sitting on a tour bus with Janie Lane and him looking at, like, I got a couple Warrant. Stronger Now is a song off Ultraphobic. So remember him just looking at it, and be like, wow, this guy is. So that was always a cool moment. I saw Sebastian Bach's band I think it was 1998 in Minnesota. And a bunch of my friends, we stayed at the hotel across from the venue. And we're drinking in our hotel room afterwards, and here comes Bam Bam, Sebastian's drummer, stops by, and we're like, hey, fuck, Bam Bam. Well, somehow or another, he invited me into his room to meet Richie Scarlett, who had played with Ace Frehley from Kiss, put out a bunch of solo albums, played with Sebastian Bach. And I sat, and Ace and Richie Scarlett's like, he had this big bottle of Jack Daniels, and he's like, shit, he's like, nice to meet you, gives me a guitar pick. He's like, I don't have any Coke. He goes, "Would you go get us a couple cans of Coke and then if you want to come sit and have a drink?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go get a couple cans of Coke and sit and drink Jack and Coke with Richie Scarlett from Sebastian Bach's band." So I sat there for like 2 hours. We were watching TV and just not even talking music, just talking shit. And Bam Bam McConnell, the drummer, was just wasted. He went and picked up some chick and was showering in the hotel room, shower with this chick. And and I'm drunk by this time, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, holy fuck, how did this happen? So anyway, that was just something weird that I never imagined happening. But then I'll just throw out the channel stuff, sitting and talking to Steve Blaze from one of my favorite bands, Lillian Axe, for 2 hours, and him actually being the one to kind of initiate the interview. Like, I never saw shit like that happening. So that was amazing.
That would be
Nice.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Very cool.
Well, thank you very much for doing our 10 questions.
Shit. No, hey, this was a lot of fun, and I'd love to come back on sometime. And if you guys ever want to swing over on mine and talk about whatever, we can come up with some topic. You guys are welcome. It was a great time. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man.
Oh,
so why
absolutely.
don't you go ahead and do your plug for your channel and let everybody know where they can find you and all your content.
Look up on YouTube, Hair Metal Guru, and channel's been going for about a year and a half. I got about 130 some videos out. So, talking hair metal, 80s rock, sleaze rock, whatever you want to call it. I call it the greatest musical genre of all time. And I'm on X at Hair Metal Guru. And I have a couple Facebook pages. I have one called Classic Rock Fargo, where I sell this stuff. I mainly just sell it locally. And I do have a Hair Metal Guru Facebook page. So yeah, feel free to check me out there and check out my channel. And I appreciate it.
Awesome. When are you going to get that tattoo though?
Fuck yeah. I want to get my logo somewhere. I got to figure out. So I'm going to do it. And I'll let you guys know when it happens on X. So
you need to have somebody film it when you're getting that tattoo.
No, that's a good idea.
That is going to be awesome. I was like, that fucking logo is cool as fuck, dude.
And do you know where I got it? Fucking Grok on X. I was like, hey, dude. I was like, hey, Grok, make a logo for the Hair Metal Guru YouTube channel. And he did a couple, and then finally he was like, I was like, oh shit, that's the one. And then I was a soldier, so I was like, add a M4 machine gun to it. So all of a sudden it's got an M4 and a flag behind it, and I fucking love it. It's kick ass. So
yeah. It's badass, man.
Yeah. So
Guru, thank you so much for being on our show.
Absolutely.
This is Pete.
My name is Mashin Mikey.
See ya.
Peace out.